Welcome to this edition of Stock Market Pulse. My name is Eric, and today is Monday, March 7th, 2016. We are a few minutes after the close. We're going to really dive into the indexes and try to get a feel of can this thing go higher? And my initial reaction, of course, it can go higher. Everything can go higher. Some people have a hard time, quote unquote, believing the rally. And right now, there's really not much to tell us to not believe it. So let's just take a look real quick. I'm looking at the weekly chart. I know, we'll drill down to a smaller time frame here in a minute, but on the weekly chart, just looking at the SPY, basically we closed flat on the day. We had a little bit of a dip, but we got a kind of rallied back up towards the end of the day to close green on the day. And from my last video a couple weeks ago, I talked about the turn in the DMI. Now we are getting into a little bit of potential resistance here. And you can see the last time we came from oversold levels, these negative 30 levels on the DMI oscillator, the price managed to kind of rally back up. And we did get, up into the 210 area. At that point, we got a nice doji here. This was late last year. And then we got a little bit of a topping tail. So there was a little bit of a sign that things were slowing down. As of last week, there is no sign. We don't have that sign yet. I mean, today is one day, so this is not, this is a weekly chart. We can't look at the daily or this candle yet and say that we're slowing down. So what I will say though, as we approach the zero line on the oscillator, we start to get into a little bit of resistance. Now, what I typically kind of look for are there any key levels we could hit and pull back off of? And if we zoom in here, we have a gap fill from end of December, right around, I'm going to call it 204, right? It's like 203 and change. I think there's zero reasons why we should not be able to rally and touch that. And if we do rally up and close on the high of the week, think of where the candle started, right? We started off with a dip, right? Buyer stepped in, we closed near the high of the day. So what will probably happen is if we do close on the high of the week, the oscillator is going to continue to move up, right? So this is only one day. We don't want to look at this yet. And, we could very well get 4 or 5 uptrending bars, and maybe we get to the upper band. If I zoom out a little bit, you can see this is kind of the high part of the resistance is going to be right around 210 on the SPY, which will go nicely with these candles. So, it's too early to, I think it's too early to just start straight shorting. I think we probably grind higher just by looking at the SPY. So let's look at a couple other things that could maybe, give us a clue. So first of all, I want to look at bonds. Let's look at TLT. It's basically flat on the day too. And it's, it's pulling back. And if today, if markets were going to sell off, bonds would be kind of going higher. So you can see bonds did rally when the market sold off the last 3 or 4 weeks. The bonds have been pulling back a little bit, so it's kind of inverse to the market. So right now there's you can see we had the sell off, and now the market's rally for a few weeks. Bonds are pulling back. So if we really started to see some selling, we may get a little bit of action in the bond market to the upside. So this is actually looking like a pretty nice pullback. The oscillator is very strong here, so looking for pullback buying opportunities in TLT, but I just don't think we do it today. So the other thing, we have the VIX. I like to look at the VIX and the VXX. When I look at the VXX, this is typically a little bit farther out than the VIX. The VIX is more of a measure of the next 30 days, and the VXX is sort of a combination of a few things for about 60 days. So so right now the VIX, it's basically flat on the day. So today really didn't tell us all that much. The only thing it told us is that we were kind of paused a little bit, but if the current uptrend is still intact, which it is, then I think we grind higher. There's a lot of people calling doubts on this rally, and I think it's too early to do that. So the other thing, we always want to look at oil. Oil is up 5% today, almost 5%. At least USO is up 4.7%. So there's really nothing bearish about today other than we had a little bit of a dip. But if you watch my Twitter feed, I think I retweeted something about some oscillators being super overbought, and they are overbought, but it doesn't mean you should just short it because you're overbought. You need a signal. So what I'm looking for in order to get short, and believe me, I will get short, is I'm looking for a negative bar on the oscillator this week, and then I'll be looking for smaller time frames. I like to drill down on the 4-hour chart. And actually, let me go back weekly. Here's how I typically set up. And then on the bottom, I do 4-hour chart. Okay, and I use a different indicator. So this sort of gives me the weekly trend. So right now the weekly trend is up, although we faltered a little bit today, but it's not over. So at this point, if we look at the 4-hour chart, we're pausing here, and the next buy signal is one you want to take. And this has been working for several weeks now. And I called this a few weeks ago back in this turn. And so basically, it's not a huge move, but if you're taking buy signals and taking buy signals with, the key is to have a wide enough stop to stay in it. And if you're leaving enough stop in there, you should have gotten a nice little move from the last video. So right now, the trend is still up. I'll be watching this gap fill, which is just a few points higher here. At that point, I'd probably really tighten up my stop and then kind of wait and see what happens. So the only thing I want to point out that was relatively significant today that the bears can maybe hold on to is the NASDAQ, the underperformance of the NASDAQ. And if we look at the Qs, they're actually down. They were down over 1% at one point, but when we look at the chart, it's really not that bad, right? They're consolidating here. Most of this was on the back of the downfall in the FANG stocks. Amazon down 2%, Google down 2.5%, Facebook down 2.5%, and Netflix kind of got destroyed. When you think about the percentage here, it's down 6%. But again, you really don't see, I know it's a lot, right? But it's really not out of the ordinary for this stock, right? Look at this move. This is probably 5-6% move. So the uptrend is still intact. Now, if this breaks and all the FANG stocks break down, then maybe we have an issue. What some bulls might want to focus on here is the IWM. The Russell was actually up 1%. So a lot of times the Russell will lead on the way up and the way down. Typically, you would have the NASDAQ and the Russell working together. That's not happening. So right now, I'm going to give the bulls the benefit of the doubt, and we'll see how the weekly chart ends up at the end of the week. And I'll take it from there. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you at the next update.